más. Estamos aquí con Becky Albertalli.
Hola, amigos de Limas.
Este, bueno, vamos a hacerle una entrevista sobre su libro más reciente, que es Imogen, Obviously. So, ¿cómo estás, Becky, el día de hoy?
Good. I'm really happy to be here. It's been a great trip so far, and I love meeting everybody here in Guadalajara.
¿Te está gustando México?
I love it. It's been great. Everybody is wonderful. Food is excellent, and it's beautiful here. I definitely want to come back.
Qué bueno, nos encanta escuchar eso de ti y nos encanta saber que estás disfrutando México. Ok, vamos a empezar a hacerte unas preguntas referente a tu libro. Y pues empiezo con la primera, que es, el viaje de autodescubrimiento de Imogen es un tema clave en el libro. ¿Cómo abordaste la escritura de un personaje bisexual cuya historia de salir del closet se desvía de la narrativa típica que a menudo vemos en los medios?
Yeah. So with Imogen, I would say I drew very heavily from a lot of my own experiences, questioning and being very uncertain for a long period of time about my sexuality. So I feel like all of my books are personal, but this one's like super personal because, for me, just like Imogen, I really thought for a long time that I was a straight woman, a very good ally, like a very, very good ally in retrospect. It was obvious, which is kind of where the title came from. But it was really fun to be able to explore that and even dive into some of the little thought processes and the little kind of logic that I would create for myself in my head, when really the answer is much more simple than I was making it for very many years.
Muy bien. Abordas la bifobia internalizada que experimenta Imogen. ¿Por qué crees que es importante incluir este aspecto de la bisexualidad y cómo piensas que resuena con los lectores?
Yeah. I think internalized biphobia is something that was really present for me that kept me from figuring out my identity for a long time. And I do really see kind of where that comes from for many bisexual people, because it's kind of hard not to internalize some of the conversations that are so common even among the queer community, where a lot of times bisexual people are kind of given a little bit of a side eye, like, are you really queer? Um, are you doing this for clout? Are you experimenting? And for me, some of those questions like really got into my head where I'm like, am I doing this for clout? Am I making this up in my head? And I've heard from many people kind of in many bisexual people or pansexual people, and also just queer people kind of who have other labels, that like this is a pretty common experience, to just kind of question question things that you just very pure feelings that are, and thoughts that really do exist inside your head. You can almost talk yourself out of them based on other people's opinions. So
Es muy importante eso que tú dices, el hecho de conocernos, ¿no? De no mentirnos a nosotros mismos, de querernos ver como nos vemos por dentro, vernos por fuera y sentirnos que somos esa persona que estamos viendo, que somos esa persona que estamos sintiendo lo que sintiendo, queriendo lo que queremos. Imogen lucha con un sentimiento de no ser lo suficientemente queer. ¿Por qué quisiste explorar este sentimiento de síndrome del impostor dentro de la comunidad queer? ¿Crees que es algo que necesita más atención en las narrativas LGBTQ?
Yeah, imposter syndrome was a big part of my experience. It's not universal, but I think it's very common, and I do think it's very common for bi people. I know personally, I know a bazillion bi women who like it's almost a defining aspect of our experiences, kind of navigating labels and coming out and kind of existing as a bi person within the queer community. And I think, for me, one of the things that felt really important about exploring that was tapping into the fact that, for Imogen and then also for me, a lot of the tension with my label and just questioning coming out was very much coming from inside the queer community. So it was a little bit different, for example, than like what Simon went through, with kind of the antagonist in
Ujú.
Love Simon. For Imogen, it's kind of like she's kind of carefully knocking at this door, at the gate, and is being kept out from this community that she's sort of been dancing around the margins of for her whole life.
Ok. La relación entre Imogen y Tessa es uno de los puntos destacados del libro. ¿Qué esperas que los lectores se lleven de su conexión, especialmente aquellos que podrían estar experimentando su primer enamoramiento queer?
I wanted this experience for Imogen to, you know, I wanted to explore some of the friction with her coming out experience, but I didn't want that to come from Tessa. I didn't want that particular moment to kind of be clouded by any kind of confusion, with are you experimenting? Like, can I trust you? Tessa doesn't have any doubts about whether Imogen is actually queer. She kind of implicitly understands that. That was really important to me. When it came to developing her character and then also kind of, navigating the relationship between the two of them. Um, and I think, I really had fun writing Tessa's character in particular because, I mean, partially because her little brain is so chaotic. It's like I got to like let my own brain off the leash a little bit and like let my ADHD jump out and put her all into Tessa. But yeah, I felt like she was kind of a fun contrast, like a foil to Imogen a little bit, because she is very comfortable with her identity. She's been out. She's like understood for a very long time, like since she was a kid. She's understood that she's a lesbian. She's out. It's just not something she tends to think about much in her day to day life. Kind of like the, you know, am I really, like Tessa doesn't have any of those anxieties. And so she's kind of well positioned to kind of help. She's like a grounding force for Imogen as she kind of takes that step into like fully embracing that label and kind of finding her place within like the queer community, her specific little community that she's found.
Escribes sobre cómo los estereotipos y las redes sociales pueden crear rasgos bisexuales aleatorios, como que en el invierno sea una estación, como que el invierno, perdón, sea una estación favorita. ¿Qué te inspiró a incorporar esto en el libro y qué piensas sobre a veces sobre cómo a veces la bisexualidad se simplifica en exceso o se comercializa en línea.
Online. So I love this question. Because I think about this all the time. Yeah, so there are a lot of little moments and references in the book to things like the song "Sweater Weather," which it's like a I maybe it comes from TikTok. I don't know. It's associated with like bisexuals. It's like it's a bisexual themed song. Lemon squares, a certain like music artists, certain kind of signals that people associate with queerness, with bisexuality in particular, that is like kind of a meme.
Ujú,
And the way I tried to approach it in the book was to have fun with it because it's funny and it's like it can be a really cute point of connection and like community. But for Imogen, it's also something she doesn't quite understand, and it's a little unnerving to her that she doesn't understand it. Like, wait, how can I be bisexual if I like literally don't know what you're talking about? Like lemon squares, like why are lemons? What I and honestly, I don't know. I don't know what the deal is with lemon squares. Like, I just know that it's like a meme that people, I am like maybe a little old to understand it, but so I kind of wanted to play with that tension of like this is fun and it's not that deep and it's light and it's like a cute little way to bond, but it's also something that like you know you, you can kind of get like in your head about it, I guess. And Imogen does get in her head about it where she feels a little bit isolated or like she feels outside of the joke, and it can lead to a little bit of extra imposter syndrome for her, and I think and I don't think these memes are a bad thing at all. Like I I think they're honestly harmless, kind of fun. I think it is important to, if you are a queer person kind of navigating this and trying to understand it, I would just emphasize that like you don't need to get it. You still count. This is not a prerequisite. You can be bisexual and never have eaten a lemon square. I am living proof of that. So
Como también a veces se siguen estas tendencias como musicales o de moda, simplemente como para ser parte de algo. Y creo que es muy importante esto que dices y creo que también es muy importante que tus lectores sepan lo que tú pienses al respecto y es muy bonito verlo plasmado en tu libro. Y esta sería la última pregunta. ¿Has escrito personajes que enfrentan el ser expuestos con, a- con algunos enfrentando incluso homofobia e exclusión? En Imogen, obviously, hay momentos que se reflejan estas luchas, pero que también desafían la idea que el sufrimiento es parte de una necesaria experiencia queer. ¿Por qué quisiste cuestionar esa narrativa?
that was really important to me, I think, kind of going into this book, because that was such a central part of the discourse that made my coming out experience really fraught, more fraught than it needed to be. Because when I came out before I felt ready. I did feel pressured, and it was awful. Like it was huge discourse in kind of all of my online communities, and I was so overwhelmed. I didn't even feel like myself for a long time in my own head. And despite all of that, kind of one of the things that really hurt is even as I was going through what felt like awful to live through it, there were many people who were like, "Oh, whatever, who cares? Like she is a privileged author making billions of dollars." I'm like, "Really? Like nobody gave me the bill, first of all." But like, um, I mean, I definitely some people like definitely overinflate what authors make, but also just kind of making that kind of slide from pointing out privileges that I really do have. Like that's really valid that I am financially stable. I'm not going to be kicked out of my parents' house as I don't live with, I don't live with my parents. I am married to a man. I can navigate, through the world. And just there are a lot of day to day privileges that I experience, but that does not mean that it was easy for me to come out. When I came out, I had to come out to my parents. I did that. I came out to my close friends, all of that right before I came out online. And everybody who I know professionally, everybody who I've ever known personally, like I'm out to everyone. Um, and so it is this kind of mix of privilege. I do have a lot of cushioning, I guess, in my day to day experience. Absolutely. And also, um, it wasn't easy. And I don't think that it had to be hard for me to count as queer is another thing. People are like, well, okay, she's like basically straight. Like, why? Like, why? Because I can't relate to like the queer experience. There is no one queer experience. That's not what it means to be queer, is to have an identical experience to all other queer people. That it erases so much of the complexity of queerness and what that looks like in different places, times, contexts, cultures. Um, and that was something that is just like really central kind of in my head and like formed this book, I think, so much.
Siempre es bueno ir paso a paso, que sean pasos pequeños tal vez, y que tú o uno se sienta cómodo haciéndolo. Si a veces se sufre de demasiada presión sobre la sociedad a- al crear esta necesidad de saber qué eres tú. Y creo que siempre olvidamos como eso, ¿no? O sea, darnos cuenta nosotros primero qué es lo que queremos hacer antes de decirle a todo el mundo quiénes somos.